Let's go. All right. So, chibi characters. Chibi characters consist of characters that are going to have really big heads, really little bodies. And most of the time, they're going to look childlike. So we need to keep those in mind. We need to keep a big head, little body. So we're going to tackle each one of these points. And then we have to have the features look childlike. You can make chibi characters look old, yes, but they still have childlike proportions. It's an interesting thing. We'll talk about that. So, but within the structure of that, the little bodies are simple. They're normally not very complex. The big heads, they're like exaggeratedly big. Like they're not just like a little big, they're really big, right? So let's tackle those topics first, okay? Let's do an example here. So whenever we're drawing a character with a big head, let's start with the head. The head is going to be the most important part. You don't start chibi characters with the body because the main part of the character is the head. The proportions that you normally want can vary from style to style, but if your head is one unit, because you're starting with that, right? That's your base unit. You want your bodies to be about half of that. So about half to 1 ratio. But that's the whole body. It's not a little bit of the body. It's not the torso. It's not anything. It's the whole body. Okay? So your head to torso is about 1 to that, an average. You can make it smaller. You can make that bigger. Variation is the whole concept of character design. Right? So being able to do a standard so that you can measure it properly all the time and then make variations from that, it's really, really cool. Learn a standard before you go into more variations. Otherwise, you're never going to be certain that you're doing things properly. You're always going to be guessing if you never set a standard for yourself. Okay? So tip. Standard base, like a base, like period, like this is where you build from, right? So variations could be, I'm not a good writer. Variations would be maybe something with a slightly bigger head, slightly bigger body, you know, like a 1 to 1 ratio would be a variation of that, right? You enlarge it. If you want something with a bigger head and a smaller body, you can just make that into a 4th. Right? Every time that you set out to draw a variation of this, everything is a variation of that same thing. Right? Maybe you make the head only 1 to the 2 of the body. Right? So it's 2 of the body, 1 head. Here's like 1 head, 1/4. Here's 1 to 1. So variations from the standard are going to give you character design powers like, you know, you're going to be like, holy shit, like, what? I can draw anything I want? And variations of it? What? That makes no sense, Rod. That should not be able to happen. But guess what? It does. We're going to color code things a little bit so that it makes a little bit more sense, okay? All right, let's add a little contrast to the outside of these little circles so that the head stands out. If I do this, I can make white things stand out even more on a white sketchbook. Right? Sometimes you want to draw white on a sketchbook, but the sketchbook's already white, so you're like, what the hell? You know, just... And that's how you do that. Okay, so big head, little body. So now let's talk about the head though. The head has to contain like certain features. So we're gonna do like a roadmap here. So from here, let's go to the head sizes. So the head. The head in general is gonna be, you're gonna start it with a circle. You're gonna start with a simple circle. Okay? You're not gonna do anything else to the circle. You're gonna, as a matter of fact, you're gonna draw very, very few lines here. The thing is, you need to learn how to place those lines. It's not about being able to draw a lot of detail. It's about learning where to put the lines that make the illusion of that detail. So I'm gonna give you a couple of examples of what people mess up and how people can fix that. So at first, you're gonna normally divide your head in half. Most people do this. They do it naturally because they've been taught these methods before, right? Most people don't even know what the fuck that line in the middle is supposed to be. They don't know what this line in the middle is supposed to be besides it's splitting it in half. That's your profile line. That's your midline. Your midline from a profile is your nose line and your chin, right? So as you rotate that to the front, that becomes the midline. So you'll see sometimes people draw a little line because they're indicating the top of the nose. So if you draw with knowledge, you just go that, and you'll see a little line, but they're not indicating like a split for the eyes or anything. They're indicating the top of the nose bridge. So they have a surface. Once you have a surface, it's easier to be able to apply your whole concept of drawing through your shapes. Right? But once you have that one element, everything starts falling into place a lot easier. So whenever you're drawing, that midline is your profile line. It's just squished because it's going closer towards you. Kind of like a big nose. When it's looking towards you, it doesn't look as big. You know? That situation, like imagine it's like, and it's like slowly gets smaller. The same situation happens with the midline. You just don't see these up lines the closer it gets to the middle, but they're still there. And once you learn that, it becomes a lot easier because your profile lines essentially are just that. If you want to draw a whole face, start with that and then just draw a profile. Right? A profile is just twice that. That's it. Most of the time, people overcomplicate it. And they overcomplicate it a lot. So just understand that it's a lot easier sometimes than we like to make it out to be, okay? So our head for chibi characters consists of, let's draw a normal head and then we'll draw a chibi head. A normal head would have eye sockets, a chin, a nose, eyebrows, bridges, and cheekbones, side of the head, ears, a mouth, a chin, eye sockets, eyes, chin, and a bunch of stuff, right? So that would be a normal head. A chibi head has none of that. A chibi head, all you got to do is figure out half the way down, right? And then do this. Three little lines. If you learn, they are essentially almost connecting to each other. I'm just breaking a little Y or little shape like that up. So if I draw a little Y, like this little shape, like an omega symbol or something, but I just don't close it. I can get super cute, adorable little like characters, and they never have to ever open their eyes. But I'll show you how to like actually draw eyes. But at first, those are the proportions you want. The detail comes from understanding very basic anatomy. Okay? Wherever the eyes hit, that is where that little dimple from your forehead goes. Okay? It goes down to where your eye is. Then you have your cheeks. Your cheeks are going to be underneath your eyes. So they're going to follow the eye line, and you just create a little heart. So once you find those two shapes, you can find your eyebrows going around them. You can find your ears on the side of it right here, that little edge that's remaining. That's where your ear goes. Your hairline in between your eyebrows, wherever you put your eyebrows, to the top of your head, split it in half, and you have your hairline. Right? And then your hair is very basic in nature. Hair grows up and then falls down. So hair grows up and then falls down. Hair grows up and falls down. You do that over and over, and you go around your characters like a cylinder. So whenever you're trying to draw little chibi characters, you keep all your features, stay below the midline, below the midline, and you draw them really simple at first. Okay, the little dimple comes in right where the eye hits, and you can do it on both sides. Most of the time you just don't see it on the other side. Like if you're drawing a little dimple thing, whenever that comes in, that's your cheekbone right here. That's the cheekbone and your temple intersecting. So your eyebrow line goes around, intersects. Then your cheekbone comes out. Same thing is happening in this side, but since you're turned a little bit, you don't see it, right? You don't see the protrusion because it's inside your body. But that doesn't mean that this whole same pattern isn't here. Exactly mirrored. Okay? So it almost looks like a little heart. Boop, boop, into another little heart. Boop, boop. So let's try that. So wherever my eyebrows are going to be, everything has to stay below here. So let's start my little heart. Let's start it in the middle of this. I'm going to do one heart for my eyebrows, one heart for my cheeks. Follow that as a line. And I have myself the ability to draw open mouths and stuff like that. Anything that I want to draw an expression underneath that is perfectly fine. But at least I'm learning how my anatomy works. On the side of these little hearts, if you leave a little space, you can draw the side of your head. Where your ear sits is going to be in the middle of where your eye goes. That's the middle of your ear. And then you go up and down. Middle, up, and down. Okay? So that is going to be essentially the concept of drawing the heads for chibi characters. You stay below the midline. And then you draw a heart for your eyebrows, a heart for your cheeks. The intersection of these lines will give you the illusion of noses and stuff like that. But if you wanted to get a pronounced nose from the front, middle, and then you go outside, back inside. And again, 2 little hearts give you your eye, your cheekbones, and your eyebrows. Oh, well, we're talking about the bodies in a second. I've been consistently drawing from your page, and I've genuinely noticed such a difference. It's insane. Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. It's the Rodgon powers. Make sure that you guys screenshot it as we go, though, so that you guys don't have to like lose this much. An example of that would be me just showing you guys how this would be done. Seeing the illusion of it is much easier than we probably think it is. We just need to know how to simplify it to the point where it makes sense to us. Hey, how's it going, Eve? How you doing? See? At the end of the day, it's not as incredibly difficult as we make it out to be sometimes. So the heads, there you go. Then we talked about hair. This goes around. Talked about proportions. The side of the head. We haven't talked about that yet. We talked about the 2 hearts though. And that's all going to be mapping back to an actual human anatomy. It's not like you're losing any sort of knowledge. You're essentially just learning how to map that information differently. I've been trying to do a chibi version of my character, Chubby. I can't seem to do it. Well, you will after today. Let's talk about what's the next part. What's the next part? So we talked about the proportions. Talked about basic heads. We can go to expressions, or we can go into more body types. What do we do? What's the next thing? Where does the roadmap take us? Can I draw your cats? Pay me money. Send me a DM, pay me money, and maybe we'll talk about it. The body. Okay, let's do the bodies. So the next roadmap would be going from the proportions. So this is proportions. proportions to bodies. Okay, so the basic body of a chibi character, let's say that we have the basic head, which is going to be a big ball for now. And we talked about how to make the features just very basically chibi, right? So we'll keep it to that for now. We won't do much more than this. The body, we talked about it being as a standard is going to be about half of whatever my body is. So if I take that, I can take the size of my ear and then just draw another ear down here. Whatever size ear I choose, I'm going to draw that as the size of my entire body. So the size of my ear is going to size the equal of my entire body. Right? That is going to be a very simple base standard that you can keep in mind. Whenever you're drawing bodies, you want to keep a little swooshy approach. So this is going to be this. You're going to draw a little circle, and you're going to go swoosh, swoosh. That's it. You go outside, inside. Outside, inside. And if you overlap the lines, you turn the character around. The more you overlap it, the more the character is turning. Okay? You get different effects by bringing in the lines or bringing them behind the circle. So if you go and you draw them behind the circle, you make it look like it's behind, right? If you overlap the line in front of it, you make it look like it's in front. Very simple. Very simple concept. And if you point that in different directions and you do that illusion, you get depth. Now you can do like spirit bombs and stuff like that. Ah. Right? The heads don't have to be really large with these guys, but they fit really, really nice in there. Right? Essentially what you're doing, this guy, his name is Bob. Okay, Bob, oh, this is what we can do this graphic for. So, Bob, meet Bob. Bob stands for ball of bodies, okay? A simple ball can teach you how to control the whole human structure. But at its most simplest form, you just follow it in and do this, right? You go down and then you go back in. So first, then second. And this is going to consistently be finding an edge and then finding volume after. And you'll see how that works in a second. But if you do that, you find the outside and you come back in, you can draw really simple body parts. You can do this going around and then coming inside your shape and going back out. So this is a very powerful tool when you have no idea at first how to draw things like limbs. Right? It teaches you the very basics so that you can later on go into drawing all the really complex things. And it turns into more complex things really easy. So there's different levels to him too. But for this instance, what we want to do is we want to learn how to move Bob by just going around in a circle, drawing an outside of my leg, and then bringing it back in for volume. Going outside, inside for volume. And then learning how to move that in different directions so that I feel like I have some control over how my character moves. Okay? When you learn to move them around, you're not going to have many issues drawing characters in different positions. So Bob is a very simple way to learn motion and limitations of your body. Okay, Bob can teach you all those complicated things you guys want to learn to draw. Because Bob is already doing those things. Superheroes and shit. Or ballerinas. Okay, so Bob is very, very useful when you have no idea how to draw human structure yet. Because Bob essentially teaches you most of the stuff that we really want to learn. Ballerina Bob. Da, 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 da. Or like a plie. Plie. I don't know if they leave their arms up like, or is that like Cardi B like throwing it down like, But these little characters, right? Eventually, they will teach you this. And this is the most valuable part about this, is that teach you the whole human structure. When you learn to break down the collarbone into a simple shape, like a compass, and your hip bones to a simple shape, like a fly, everything else comes a lot easier. The whole human structure fits within Bob. You just need to know and learn how to dissect them a little bit more. And that's what your perspective classes are for, right? Learning how to take that little circle and turn that into a whole human is just a couple dissections away. Woohoo. So that is essentially what we're doing with our bodies. The body, it might look like we're doing little simple circles, right? But in reality, we're doing the whole structure. We're thinking of everything together. So whenever we're drawing them, draw your head first, right? Your head comes first all the time because it's the biggest volume that you're going to have. Regardless of the position that you end up having your little character in, it's not going to, body's going to be, at first, it's not going to be any bigger than, let's say, your ear. Okay? Regardless of the position that you have them in, whatever you're doing. Let's say that, I don't know, this character looks like he's just sitting down on the grass. What a really weird angle. The whole Freeran thing. That doesn't happen. Like, even if you have like extreme angles like this, most of the time you don't see that sort of situation happen because your head doesn't work like that. Your head does not do that little step thing. So whenever you're drawing bodies, you're going to be doing a bob. Circle, line, circle, line. And then the feet can go in any direction. Like you're seeing me do little triangles, but this little ball thing at the bottom, just go in any direction, like a little pedal. If I need my legs to be from the back, I can draw my legs from the back by doing that and then just bringing that shape forward. Okay, if I need my feet from the front, I'm going to do that and I'm going to bring it forward. Simple. Super simple. A lot of the times it's going to come down to just learning what lines to overlap over each other when you start doing things like this. Right? When you start bending legs and stuff, if you bend them in different directions, they go in different ways. So it's really easy to mess them up because the moment that you overlap one wrong, it's the same shapes, but now one's looking like it's pointing down and one's looking like it's pointing up. You know what I mean? So understanding this is simple, but then you have to learn how to overlap your thigh over your calf. And that's just a simple concept. You'll see. Look how easy it is, okay? Draw a little dot for your kneecap. Wherever your body connects, it's going to be like an angle, okay? Kneecap. Inside of the leg to the bottom of the kneecap. Don't close the line. If you leave it open, it stays the same element. And then you just bring it back out. I just leveled up your legs in like a second. So stretch them out. Make that happen for bigger anatomy. You want more anatomy? Then you're just going to have to learn how to overlap a little bit more lines. Right? That's it. You can have all the anatomy you want within the structures that you already drew. Right? The stuff that you've already drawn. You don't have to unlearn anything. So whenever we're drawing little chibi characters, we're still thinking of Bob, but we're just making it super simple. Right? We're not drawing all the details. We're not doing all that. We could, if we wanted to, but there's going to be a lot of things going on into that little chibi character if you start adding a bunch of anatomy into it. But technically you could, very easily. Again, by just learning how to overlap some lines in the right place, you could have yourself little chibi characters with muscles and doing fun things. Look at me, I'm Superman. All right, any questions on the little chibi character so far? Oh, the hands of the chibi characters? So bodies, again, let's do a little turnaround for them. From the front, it could be just a little circle, and you divide the top and the bottom like a pill. From the profile, you want more of a flat part in the back, and that would be more the case. You would still have the head right here, and your arms would be coming out from the side right here. And then if we were going 3/4, it would just be like a chunkier profile. So slightly chunkier profile. And you move the mid part of the leg a little bit more. Boop. Boop. So that would be roughly the proportions for the front, and the back. And then this, if you want to move it, you have to break it down into the anatomy parts. Right? You need to learn how to move that so that you can have access to all the movement. Because once you know how to move that compass and you move how to move that little fly thing, everything else just becomes learning how to connect back to it. The arms and the legs, simple cones. So hands would be a little cone with a little ball. The cone and the ball, you can draw little things going around the ball. Right? So if I draw a little cone, I already have a circle. That circle, I can go around it, go outside, inside. Outside, inside. Outside, inside. Outside, inside. So I can slowly learn how to create hands from just simple shapes. And if I don't close the lines, again, the moment that I don't close those lines, everything stays one big element. So I need to learn when to close them, when not to close them. But when I do that, then I can learn how to create really cool illusions with really little shapes. Okay? So as you were learning hands and feet, in general, it's going to be the same concept. Okay, so understanding legs and feet, when you start bending them, that's going to be the tricky part because you need to understand the whole kneecap, battle of the leg to the bottom of the kneecap trick. If you learn that trick, they become easy. If you don't learn that trick, it becomes really annoying. Okay, so little feet and legs, little cones, into little tiny shapes. It's not a very, very huge, dramatic thing. Most of the time, you don't really pay attention to the details in the feet and the arms because it's not a big part of the little chibi character. It's going to be a really tiny thing. So just learning how to make them expressive, but without adding detail, is very important. Okay, so that's going to be the tips for the body. What is the next step from there? What else do we need to put together? Let's do a couple of examples right here. And expressions. Ooh, yeah, we can go into the facial details and stuff like that. All right, so now that we have set that part, let's do the color coding and we can set that aside. So we have talked about bodies. There you go. Cool. And then inside of here, we segmented it into the lower body and the upper body and the feet. let's separate that lesson right there. Okay, awesome. Let's do the next thing. What's next? So from the heads, we have to go down to details of the face, like expressions and stuff, right? So let's do that. From there, let's go to expressions. Let's go into details like eyes, that like so that you can actually make expressions. That's good for positioning and placement, but let's do actual detail. So eyes, mouth, and nose. Okay. So when we're talking about little chibi characters, again, we want to maintain most of our details to the bottom part of our heads, right? And it's going to feel weird at first, but you need to learn that most of your features are going to sit down here, okay? At first, you're going to want to always split your head in half right here because you're used to drawing that. But most of the time, drawing your shapes a little bit lower are going to give you a bigger forehead. And the bigger forehead is what gives you a cute factor. Right? So another thing that gives you a big factor for that is going to be your eyes. So what you're going to be trying to combat all the time is drawing gigantic eyes on little chibi characters. You can, absolutely, you can totally do that. But the way that you have to do that is you still have to maintain the rules and the structure of a little kid head, right? From there, you don't disturb the nose and the mouth head. You don't disturb that, okay? You can still start your drawing the same way with a little chibi head like this. That just stops becoming your eye and it starts becoming your bottom of your eye. And then you can build up from there. You never lose the structure of your actual drawing with the other stylization. You don't lose the childlike features that you have worked to establish with your basic standard. And the anatomy just kind of falls into it because you're pointing to the right place with your anatomy. You're pointing to the outside of your eye. So it doesn't matter how you build up your eye from there. So style, you just need to learn how to build up for it, right? You need to know where to establish where to begin your shapes, and then you're fine. Again, halfway, that's where your little pointy part is. Wherever this points in, that's going to point to the outside of your eye. Wherever this one, the first one, is the outside of your eye. It's a very simple way to explain it. Hold on. Super simple. So your eye consists of a really cool shape that has a shape like that, right? Cool. So if you have your eyebrow is going to be a little bit bigger than your eye. Well, the eyebrow is essentially falling on the ridge of your eye socket. If you have like a skull, you know, like that, right? Your eyebrow follows this. The bottom of your eye is not there, it's right here. So your eye sits right in the middle right there. And then the outside of your eye always curves in to the outside of your eye. From the outside of your eyebrow, it curves in. And then it comes back out because of your cheekbone. So your cheekbone goes behind this. Behind it. So you're going this line, and then you have the other one that's a little bit behind it. This is wrapping around, creating the volume for your cheekbone. You have, if you were down to your anatomy, that would be the case. okay? And then you have your jaw structure that's normally inside of that or below that. But then you have flesh. You don't have bone structure. So you only see partial parts of that stuff. Right? You only see little lines, little tiny bumps, little tiny things. We have to learn to identify those bumps as what they are. Okay, we need to learn to identify those little bumps, for minuscule as they are, for what the structures underneath are. And that's why it's normally difficult to understand all that stuff at first. But whatever you draw this right here, whatever happens here, it happens right here. So that's where you get those little bumps from. And that little bump always points to the outside of the eye. Right? So understanding that very simple concept will help you understand these little sections a lot more. You don't really draw a chin when it comes down to chibi characters. So you just go down and you just go on a nice flat curve. And then you just have to identify where the ear is going to be. The ear is going to go around your head. Okay? And it's going to be about one eyebrow's width away from your eyebrow. So if you draw an eyebrow, one eyebrow's width back, draw your ear. The other pinpoint of the ear is the middle of the eye. So if the middle of the eye matches with the middle of the ear. So you have two mapping points for yourself. If this is it, if I draw a little circle going around it, my ear is going to be one eyebrow's width, and it's going to stick out from there. You wouldn't see it from that angle. Cool. So whenever we're drawing characters, if we're drawing them from the front and we still want these little bumpies, we have to understand them. Okay, below the midpoint, we're going to draw my eyes. If I want to draw a nose, all I got to do is draw a little tiny V. Like, it's not going to be very complicated, but let me explain why you draw the V. Okay, so a nose is going to fall right here. Okay, your nostrils and your nose get created from a pyramid. If you draw a little pyramid, you can draw yourself a nose really easy. Whenever you're drawing these little triangles for little chibi characters, you're essentially drawing only one side of the nose. Instead of drawing a whole nose with the whole structure, you're only drawing the sides and maybe sometimes the bottom. Okay, sometimes you only draw the triangle at the bottom. But it does, if you understand where the actual anatomy and where that little trick comes from, it makes it a lot easier to understand where to place it. Okay? So whenever we're drawing these guys, I like to identify the mouth and the nose and the eyes first. And then in between, you go eyebrow to the outside of my mouth, eyebrow to the outside of my mouth. I get left a little triangle. I can draw the nose within that triangle. I'm still struggling to get the little cheeks correct. Okay, the little cheeks are always going to come from drawing to the outside of your eyebrows to the outside of your eye, and then follow the roundness of your eye. So you're going to end up with this little shape, like a 3 at the side of your character. Okay. If you draw that, the remaining space becomes your temples. So if we take this little shape, this little 3 that we draw, right? That little shape, and we add that shape twice and we overlap it, we can even create ourselves our little nose. Kind of looks like the Jolly Bee thing. So if we take that shape, we split it in half, and then we draw a 3 on the side, we can have easy access to the cheek and that. Do that same thing over here, and you get the little cheek. So you mirror exactly the same on both sides. It kind of does look like the Jolly Bee thing. But that's a simple way that you can approach it as well. Right? Just keep all the elements below the midline. 3, 3, follow the 3 in to get my eyes, eyebrows, and my mouth files in there somewhere. And now I can make little chibi characters. And it almost seems like it's easy, right? It almost seems like it could just be so easy that we can have some fun with it. The nose, again, is going to be little simple triangles. If you draw it really big, it takes away the illusion a little bit of the chibi character. So that's why I said draw these two and then draw a little nose. All the features should be little. Okay? Even when you draw the bigger like features, like imagine that you're drawing big animated eyes on. The features still stay small. Hey Rod, a student missed the explanation of chibi bodies. Can they see it so they can screenshot it? Yeah, of course. So for these guys, we talked about making the head about the size of what the ear would be, so about half of the body size. And then we just did Bob. So if you go to your flow exercises in the academy, if you go to the flow class in the fundamentals, that is essentially what Bob is teaching you. Those two classes, the outside edge, inside volume, and Bob, and the flow one teach you how to draw Bob. So I have to make an actual lesson that's called Bob and add it to the academy, but that's the two lessons that make up that. And that I have learned how to turn that into entire body system. Like entire body system, not just that, like learning how to create like rib cages and hip bones and movement from it. It's been awesome. Can't wait to show it. I'm going to start filming again heavily starting in January. So I'm going to have a bunch of classes for the academy added too. So again, drawing your noses should be easy. Mouths. Let's talk about mouths. So the actual mouth of the characters is going to depend on your penmanship. Okay? What I mean by that is within the structures of a circle, okay? you're going to have to find a way to not just draw your eyes, but you're going to have to be able to draw a lot of detail within a very small space, unless you're drawing really big or you have really good penmanship. Okay? Unless you're trying to always draw the same simple little mouths, like little circles with the open negative space, which is really valid and everything as well, right? You can do that for pretty much any expression you want. Happy, sad, hungry, learn to stick your tongue out a little bit, and then you have infinite expressions. But if you want to learn how to draw them properly, you're going to need to learn to draw more detail with less volume, aka you need to learn thick and thin lines. If you draw a thick line, I can generate volume. If I draw thin lines, I can generate detail without creating volume. But if every line is the same, it generates volume in everything and nothing stands out. Right? You have to compensate that with thinner lines to be able to generate the concept of depth. So thick and thin lines can be a very simple way to draw mouths. Thick line for the top of the mouth, maybe slightly thicker line for the bottom of the teeth, and thin lines for everything else will generate a nice simple mouth. Thick and thin lines are wonderful. And they generate so many illusions that it's something that a lot of the times we can use not just for the mouth, but also for the eyes. A thick and a thin line give the illusion of the eyelid. Whatever details I want inside, circles, lines, whatever, becomes easier to control. So different size curvy lines that intersect generate different illusions. Illusions are endless. Okay, so thick and thin lines. Tip number 2 is thick and thin lines. Just learn how to draw them a little better. Okay? And once you start learning the thick and thin lines, the placement, the little hearts, the little threes, whatever shapes you guys want to use to find those, right? Once you start learning that, you can start adding stylization to your little chibi characters. Now you're not just limited to drawing the little sample ones that we've been drawing. Now you have the ability to draw something a little bit more complex. And the more that you understand how overlapping lines and thick and thin lines can work to your benefit, you'll see a huge improvement in your artwork. Like you'll see such an intense change in your art that you'll be like, what the fuck? Like, why did I not apply this earlier? Like, why did someone not teach me this earlier? That's but you're gonna keep on repeating to yourself because it makes that big of a change when it comes down to your drawings. Okay, so now we have established a little bit more of the eyes and the all right. So what's left for this lesson? I think that's general chibi things. In general, I think that's most of you. We can go into more like eye designs and stuff like that, but in general, that's more of like an anatomy lesson. Because that's a general thing. There's no chibi eyes. There's eyes. And then learning how to do them chibi stylish is just a skill thing. This guy does look like the Jollibee thing. Yes, now apply it all to one character example. Oh, yeah, we could do that. We can do that instead of the explanation of Bob. Let's do an example of a little chibi character. Actually, that's actually a great example. Example time. All right, so will you upload the stream? Yes, this one will be uploaded to YouTube as per Nana's request and in general because this one came out to be a really cool lesson. So let's start with the big head. Draw a little body. We'll make him walking by using Bob to figure out the direction of my legs. I'm gonna probably make him looking at his phone. And he's probably gonna walk off a cliff because he's not looking. Always try to tell a story with your art. That's like such a crucial part of like doing art, is about learning how to tell stories. Not just something that's pretty, but you need something that's going to be really, really, really entertaining for people to come back and look at all the time. Okay? Like, you have to become a storyteller in everything that you do. Not just your sketches, but your storyboards and everything. But that's supposed to have motion, right? No, I mean like everything from your still images. Everything should invoke a feeling of like, ooh, what's going on? Ooh, what is it doing? Ooh, why? Like you want that question from people. Why? What is that? What is that? And if you can get that, it becomes a lot easier to captivate people so that you can actually make a living doing this shit. Let's see. Draw myself my little arms. But I do have hair. Again, we talked about adding detail. Understanding where your elements are going to fall. Helps you understand how to add and where to adjust from your base structures. Should probably give myself headphones since I'm not paying attention. Anyways, let's see, this is my phone. Would I be wearing pants or shorts? Nah, I'd be wearing pants. I've been into wearing super baggy pants lately. So I'd walk in this direction. Let's make the pants dark so the shirt can stand out a little bit more. Draw some shadows underneath. Perspective, going back in space. I normally don't draw myself with eyes in general because of my glasses. I like the whole mysterious look, but I'll draw some eyes from this one. But first of all, why am I distracted on my phone? What is going to cause me to fall off the cliff? I already know. There you go. Probably the reason I'm going to fall off a cliff one day or crash. Bloop, 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 bloop. And again, chibi characters should be fun. They should be entertaining. It should be fun for you to draw them, right? They should be simple in nature, but it can be as complex as you allow yourself to be able to learn perspective and anatomy, right? I showed you a bunch of examples of how that can be easily transformed from those things to the other. It's just a matter of practice and a lot of drilling. Like, you have to actually see it as something that you need to learn to be better at your career. Right? You can't just think about it as something that, oh, I'll learn it someday. I'll just pick up a book one day and learn it. You're not going to learn it like that. It's a lot harder than people think sometimes to get to the point where your simplification makes sense. So if you take it seriously, you're going to be getting there a lot quicker than if you just kind of go like, oh, it's an obligation to learn how to do this. Why do I have to sit there and draw circles all the time? Why does Rod tell me to draw straight lines for a whole sketchbook? Well, it's because if you don't have the line quality, if I think circle, right, but an oval comes out, my drawings aren't going to ever be accurate, right? If I think box, but a rectangle comes out, then again, it's the same thing. It's accuracy. If I try to draw a straight line, but a squiggly line comes out, it's accuracy. So you need to understand that your accuracy needs to be so good that you could probably just repeat the same line over and 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 over. I'm not even looking at the paper anymore. And then all that happens is maybe minuscule changes, but if you actually concentrate, you can do that and just repeat it, pick it up, take up your sketchbook, go again. Right? You get to the point where your accuracy is very important. Because accuracy is very important when it comes down to art. Art is a game of precision. It's not a game of averages. So the more that you spend your time practicing even thicker lines, thinner lines, and make them so indistinguishable from each other that they just become like magic. Everything just becomes, oh my God, this person added wrinkles and everything, but his drawing is still good. How do you add so much detail to something and you still keep drawing? I can't even draw a stick figure. Right? A lot of the times, the problem that we have isn't necessarily that we can't do the drawings. We just don't sit there enough to actually pay attention to what the lines are supposed to be doing. The illusions that we're trying to create is just that. You're creating illusions. If you're trying to replicate reality, you're going to spend hours and hours and hours doing and doodling eyes and everything without getting any results for what you really want to do. You want to learn to draw eyes so you can do comics, so you can do cartoons, so you can do characters, so you can do animations. Most of the time, people teach how to draw something like eyes, like it's supposed to be the exact replica of the thing in front of you. Why do I need to do a shadowy eyes if most of my drawings are not going to have shadows? Not that I don't know how to, not knowing how to draw shadows is a bad thing, yes. But for the need that I need to at first, I don't require any of that. I just require knowing the shapes so that I can be creative with it. Because my goal is to be creative. My goal is not to just replicate like everybody else. My goal is to stand out from everybody. Because I'm an artiste. And artists don't want to be like everyone else. All right, so thank you so much, everybody, for keeping me company today. Thank you for allowing me to teach you some of my tips and my tricks and allowing me to do this in a new format that I want to keep. Please keep me accountable for this. Please, please, please don't let me break out of this and we will have a fucking epic book at the end of like 2 months. We will have an amazing lesson book that goes along with videos that we already have, and we can have this as a book and a resource. Just keep me accountable. If we go into this lesson book, we do it as a lesson. And if you guys help me stay to that, we're going to have something amazing in a couple months, right? So you guys take care. You guys are awesome. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend. And if you do go out and you party and you do all that stuff, be safe. We want to see you again. Okay? Take care. See you guys next time. Till then, bye.